you can't do that, think about stopping work and remembering those who served at 11 o'clock, whatever you're doing. Captain Nick Pisano was born in Ottawa and comes from a family of 6. He received his BA from Acadia University in 2009 and Bachelor of Education from Windsor at 2010. He joined the Canadian Army in 2017 and is currently serving as an infantry officer with the Essex Scottish. And to remind you that Essex Scottish is a reserve army unit, part-time, and they have people stationed in both Windsor and Chatham. He's held positions in the regiment as platoon commander, which commands around 30 people, a company second in command, brigade operations officer, and head of collective training for the brigade headquarters, which is located in London. And he was there from 2022 to 2025. Currently, Captain Pisano is the adjutant of the Essex Scottish, and the adjutant is a position that really is the key to everything happens in the unit. So everything comes through Nick, both up and down. In December 2023, Nick deployed to Iraq as part of Operation Impact, and Canada's been there for about 10 years. He held a position as an information officer and was deployed over 7 months and spending time in Iraq, Kuwait, and Qatar. In his spare time, which isn't much, he enjoys watching football, walking his 2 terriers, Tango and Cash. We got to know why they're called Tango and Cash. And spending time with his fiance and family. Rotarians, please welcome Nick.
Thank you, sir, for that great introduction. I watched reruns as a child, so Tango and Cash is the reason for my dog's names. So, first of all, thanks everyone for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. It took some time us to get in here because all the construction and they just don't want you to come to this lovely church that's out in this room. So today I'm going to talk, my talk's about 3 topics. I'm going to talk about my tour experience as it relates acutely to, the world conflicts and everything that's gone on since October 7th and how that ties into just the world we live in today. I'm going to talk about all the deployed operations that the Canadian Armed Forces is currently undertaking, at least the big ones that currently we have a lot committed to as a country. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about at home, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Kerrigan, and the modernization of the Canadian Armed Forces going forward. Right now, we're in a very large period of reconstitution. I would say it's definitely the largest since pre-Bosnia. We're going through a real change within the Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm going to talk about that to finish off. So you guys can have a look at my slide deck as I go. Thank you so much. So good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Nicholas Lozano, as Lieutenant Colonel still to me, Wheelers had said. So he was right. I had deployed on Roto 10 of Operation Impact. Now it's been changed to Operation Amarna as part of Operation Inherent Resolve. And what Operation Inherent Resolve is the mission to defeat Daesh or ISIS. Why Daesh? They hate being called that in their language. So we do that to discourage, because ISIS is a title that they gave themselves. And so that is, again, another way that we have worked in, I guess, as you can call it, as a PSYOP or information operations, which is the cell I worked in overseas. Right now, in that mission, as Mr. Wheeler had mentioned, we've been there for 10 years, and we're currently in its 4th phase of reconstitution. Now, that phase began prior to October the 7th. However, once that happened, it kind of changed. The NATO forces, as well as headed up by U.S. CENTCOM, or Central Command, in Florida, outside of Orlando, are the ones who are heading up the mission, with contingents from the Brits, the French, Canadians, and about 23 other nations. So once October 7th happened, it was really tough to kind of place where we are now, and should we be in this 4th phase? Should we increase presence? Should we decrease? So that's what's currently being undertaken since I've left, and I left and came back to Canada on July 1st of 2024. So I came back on Canada Day of last year. So right now, what does it look like for Canada? At least in the last 5 years, since 2020, 2025, we've decreased our presence as the Canadian Armed Forces in Operation Impact from around 300 to what is right now roughly 130, made up. Oh, sorry. How can I progress the slide deck?
Hit the right on your mouse.
Technical difficulties. My apologies. Next. Oh, I'm zooming. Help. Okay, I might need some.
PowerPoint you're in?
Sorry,
Is that PowerPoint you're in?
I'm not sure. I just images. I just need to someone to like to go to the next image. So even if I have someone click, I'll just say next slide. And zoomed in somehow. I'll continue on though. So again, within Operation Impact, we're working out of 6 different countries. So Iraq was one contingent that I was part of. There's also CTAT Lebanon, based out of Beirut. There's also CTAT Jordan, and there's also Qatar, where the Air Force is operating out of KAOK, which I had the privilege to visit in Qatar. And let me tell you, it's a very large facility mapping the entire Middle East from the Mediterranean Sea, almost as far as India, and every plane hitting up in between. So in the slide deck, I have some photos of the different planes that they would run, because again, we're talking about a large area of operations, and there was a lot of travel between these locations. So one side, we could see.
I'm just gonna try to.
Reboot it. No problems.
While you're up there, what was the weather like when you were there?
Good question. So I got there in December, and it was mild. I say the daytime highs were about 25 degrees, and we'll get down to about 14 to 12, just enough to put on a jumper and sit out in front of your cube housing unit that was made of tin, and probably had, well, I knew it had black mold in it, but it's. And then in the summertime, so I've been to Thailand in September. I've been to Spain in August in the very south. And what trumps them all is Kuwait in June, July. The daytime high on average got between 45 and 53 degrees. And the last week I was there on Camp Arif Jan in Kuwait, it reached over 50 5 out of 7 days. The last week I was there. The siren would go off, which was the priority of work. And as soon as it hit 50, workers had to stop working.
But it's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. It's a dry heat. Absolutely. You get cooked from the inside. So as I mentioned before, Joint Task Force Impact, or Operation Impact, serves as a multinational contingent throughout the Middle East. Again, within Lebanon, Iraq, Kuwait, and Jordan. And what's not mentioned on here is obviously Bahrain and Qatar, which we have a smaller contingent within the Air Force, about 2 to 5 persons, who work in Central Command within the flight operations deck. Go to the next picture, please.
Yeah.
She's got it. She's got it. She's doing
It's
it.
not working.
So yeah, from
Yeah,
here,
they're on
you
the
press
side.
left and right.
Oh,
Perfect. So again, as part of Operation Impact within the Iraqi contingent, because that's what I was part of, there's about 30 pers, 6 or 7 that were part of Operation Inherent Resolve, which was the mission again to defeat Daesh, and NMI, or NATO Mission Iraq. NATO Mission Iraq is the contingent in which we have allocated about 24 soldiers to help the local Iraqi police and their governmental and other agencies, forces locally, to train them how to fight, as well as how to de-escalation tactics, okay, and various other stability operations as well, to vehicle checkpoints and things of that nature. So you can see here, this is a photo from 2019 before my tour of them training. Again, we have partner forces, Special Iraqi Forces, Iraqi Police, and they're teaching them tactics, in this case, of vehicle clearance, it looks like to me. Next picture, please. So these members have been part of NATO Mission Iraq. Again, here, they're teaching combat first aid, okay? And you can see it's Canadian led. Again, this photo's from about 2018. And we have, again, different Iraqi partner forces, okay, within their own nation. Again, enabling operations, again, as part of the last phase to reconstitute, which is another fancy word for withdrawal, okay? It's also for them to enable themselves as well, okay? Next picture, please. So with my experience, because again, I had the privilege of being attached to the Canadian National Representative, which was a Colonel McEachern of the South Konas, which is a tanking regiment, one of our regular armed forces tanking regiments. So we would take private jets because ever since the Gulf War and the defeating of Saddam Hussein in the 90s, obviously the relationship between Iraq and Kuwait hasn't been great. So there are no flights through commercial airlines through those two countries. So we had to take a lot of private jets. So behind me is a C-12, and that was my first flight that the United States would run in between, and they had an agreement with the government of Iraq where they didn't have to come in and out of the country with visas and whatnot. I did, so every time I came through with the Americans, I had to go into the support center and get my passport stamped, but I did this at least 15 to 18 times in a 7-month span, going between Kuwait and Iraq, went to Qatar for the regional dynamics update, which were members on all the missions within the Middle East, so some others I'm going to talk about, as well as some people from Ottawa. We're talking about, at the time, revulcanizing the Middle Eastern planet, rewriting it for the next 5 to 10 years, let's say.
Excuse me, Mary Lou, can you try now expand the screen at the top?
Yeah, that's it.
You should be able to still use the arrows.
Yeah.
Or use it down.
Yeah, if you go left to right, I think with the arrows on
Up
it.
or down.
Let's try it.
Or just.
There we go. Perfect. So,
Okay, so you want it back?
no, this is
It's working.
it's working. I don't want to destroy it. They ain't broke, don't fix it. So again, just as a testament to all the planes running in and out, because again, we're talking about a very large area, the size of half of Canada in terms of area and the area of operations. So right here, these planes, this was taken in Qatar. These are Hercules or CC-130s, and some of these are CC-150s. So large planes. Now these would be used mostly for cargo rather than personnel. Sometimes they do mix it up when they have space available. I've been on a couple of Space 8 flights where you have a mix of cargo and personnel, but these are used en masse to ship aid to Gaza, which we did do. There was a lot of planes when I was there that were reallocated from us using it for CMTT or anything else that was being rerouted for aid and drop, and we did when I was there. I had to see it live, so it was a great experience. Next picture, please. Again, another picture, but I can't stress enough the testament of how big these planes are in these large areas, and you can see them in the background as well as the foreground. There were so many of them, I probably counted at least 50 of these planes that could probably carry enough to outfit an entire battalion with, and that's roughly about 330 people to support.
And those are US or Canadian planes?
They're a mix. They're a mix of NATO forces, mostly American, some Canadian, some British, some French, and some a couple even, but not these planes, but their fighter planes were even Kuwaiti. Next slide, please. And I actually have a couple of those different kinds. So here we have a picture of these are 2 Canadian pilots that are flying on this one, a CC-150 Polaris, which is our very large plane, bigger than a Herc. So just business as usual for me. So again, here we see the inside of the cockpit and whatnot. Again, they did a lot of flying missions, and there was many hours to the point of we couldn't get from the end of my rotation CMTT, which is some of our luggage, out back into the theater because they had to reallocate resources to the Middle East at the time. Next slide, please. Then you can't see, but this is the MOLAB Special Operational Command Central. Okay, so this is the U.S. Army Special Operations Command Central, and again, done from Qatar, because Qatar, my experience there, it's like Switzerland of the Middle East. It's a place for congregation on both sides of the aisle. I mean, I'm sure at one point there were high up Daesh leaders there while I was there during the regional dynamics updates, but they maintain neutrality throughout the Middle East, and they try to bring everyone from all swaths to the table. And that's really what Qatar kind of has served diplomatically and kind of socio-politically. So moving on. Okay, I'm gonna quickly, so again, just a testament to the planes. You can see a lot of them, and I can't tell you how big they are. Next slide, please. This right here is a Predator drone that was about to take off. I took it on a video. I tried to look the video for you guys to get a sound. That was in that C-12 jet you saw me in the other picture. So this is for ISTAR. So intelligence, target acquisition and surveillance, reconnaissance. So this would be used as a monitor or oversee. It does have munitions on it, so it is able to strike if it needs to. So it can act offensively, but its primary function is a defensive capability, so surveillance, target acquisition. Next slide, please.
Who owns that?
Who owns that? Those were the Americans that owned that. That was American funded. They have a lot of target acquisition equipment and resources. So yes, these are ours. These are Canadian planes. So this is a UH-47 Blackhawk, and that is a Chinook. So this, I was able to take both of them. I took about 5 different platforms on my tour. Again, very lucky and fortunate that I was able to travel on both. I will tell you that this one was very cool, but taking a 3-hour flight from Kuwait to Iraq, the novelty is gone in about 25 minutes. It's very loud. The only thing that's louder and colder is the Chinook. Again, I had to do a 3-hour flight on that as well too. It is even louder. I had, the spongy ears, and then I had a bigger Pro over. It's still loud, and it gets cold because the back isn't closed up all the way. So you have about 2 feet, or you can feel some of the wind if you're sitting in the very back of the plane. Next slide, please. Okay. So my next point, and I'll kind of go about this more big hand, big map, smaller points. Is all the missions that the Canadian Armed Forces are currently undertaking. If there's a dot on that map, it means we have at least 2 personnel on the ground there. Focusing on the more acute missions that right now the Canadian Armed Forces is put forth. Okay, we have Op Reassurance in the north and in Latvia, in Riga, with supporters also in and around the region. Okay, including Navy. We have Op Unifier. Okay, which is located in Poland. There is a small contingent in Germany that's not listed in the SAG-U, and as well too in Britain, training Ukrainian troops. There's Op Camulet, which again, it has it's more for the Navy. However, there are follow-on effects to the region with Israel and Gaza going on. There's Op Proteus, which is again ours is an observer mission to diplomatically in our contingent in support of the U.S. mission there in Israel. We have about 5 members there. And then Op Impact or Op Ramona, which again is located in the AO that I said between Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, and Jordan. Next slide, please. So I'll leave it there, but again, those were the bigger missions. Again, I just want to speak to Proteus. And Proteus again was Canada's contribution to the Office of the United States Secretary of Coordination, or USSC. Again, that's what's based in Israel right now, and that's the condition we had. When I was over there, we already had members over there, including a 1-star general or brigadier general is what we identify them as well as another major and some other staff officers as well. So my last point was modernization of the Army. So what is the Canadian Armed Forces doing? Right now, we're going through a period of reconstitution, and the commander's broken this down to 3 priorities: readiness, retention, and modernization. What does he mean by readiness? Soldiers' availability linked to the readiness. So what does that mean to people in layman's terms? Is every soldier, if you guys were soldiers in this room, are you ready to go in 48 hours if we have natural disaster in go, or if we have a forest fire out west? So that's the commanders of the Army's mandate is that soldiers will be ready here at home to react within 48 hours. What does that look like overseas? They'll be ready to move if we need to move within a week. So if people have put themselves up for tour, Their readiness is good. They have all their admin sorted out. They're fit. They're smart. They're ready to go a week before you have to go. Retention. How is this going to happen? Well, we've just received a pretty generous pay bump for the regular forces and the reserves, which will help with retention. Only one aspect of it, but how the commander intends to achieve this is he's going to reconstitute from 5 divisions currently we have right now, and we're in 4th division. So 4th division is made up of 3 reserve brigades, 31 which we're in, 32 which is Toronto GTA, and 33 which is Ottawa, as well as 2nd Canadian Mechanized Brigade Group. That's 4th division, basically all of Ontario. What they're talking about is taking us from 5 divisions to 3 divisions, so to reconstitute us and make us more efficient, more in line with the Australian Army. And the last one is modernization. So how he's going to do that with modernization? Well, that's modernization through doctrine. So what and how we go about doing our administration, doing our drills and attacks, and how we go about that. Our equipment. Okay, we need a lot of new things. Next slide, please. So this is one that's already come out. So modernization with equipment, electronic warfare, cybersecurity. You maybe even seen it, and if you lovely members have Facebook, you may have seen scrolling cybersecurity for old vets. That's something that's definitely a resource that the Canadian Armed Forces is trying to tap when it comes to that. So modernization, soldier delivery systems, short, medium, and long-term range. So the everyday soldier, what are they going to get? What in terms of retention can we do to keep them? And part of that, besides pay and benefits, is equipment. If you have a nice facility like this lovely community center and church and outreach group, you're more likely to come. If you have nice things, you're going to perform more. You're going to have more pride for what you have. So I'm not going to list it all right here, but there's quite a bit, and I do have a sample handout as well, so you guys can see. But so far, these are all coming out as should. We've already got the new PBU uniforms that are different from our old cat pad green uniforms, which is the last iteration of the uniform. They've already come out with the medium term. We're in right now the end of the medium term release for short, medium, and long systems for delivery. So different helmets, different service rifles, different pistols have already been issued, different tactical vests, and different plate carriers. Those are all being released, as well as boots, both cold and desert, sleeping bags, and other accoutrements as well. The last thing I want to say before I wrap this up, when it comes to modernization of the Army, I have an article here, and I printed off, and I'll leave for at your leisure to read. But it's by Richard Nyam, who's a regular contributor to the CDR, and he had a good summary, I find, of the modernization of the Army, and he touches on various topics such as this is equipment in the Canadian Army for conventional warfare in the 21st century, and he talks about asymmetric warfare in Afghanistan and the lessons learned from that, the high conventional conflicts going on right now with Russia and Ukraine, and seeing what more of a peer-to-peer army is like in maneuver warfare these days. Canada and what we need to shore up ours. But with all that said, I just want to read from you a paragraph he added from his conclusion, because I thought it was a good summary before I end my time here. So in conclusion, he said, in an increasingly unstable and unpredictable world, all these capabilities are critical to the Canadian Army, as in the future, they may be called on to bring the fight to remote and far away regions and in the globe. While the Canadian Army may be well versed in combined arms warfare and capable of fielding a small force in support of a coalition fight, it is far from being ready to fight and operate in a high intensity 21st century conventional war setting. This ongoing conflict in Ukraine has clearly showcased this, and exposed many glaring deficiencies and capability shortfalls in Canada's military. While it is not too late to fix these issues, action must be taken now and swiftly, such as steps including the Canadian Army taking note of all of its weaknesses, procuring cutting-edge defense technology in a timely manner, getting back to the delivery systems and larger, and adjusting its doctrines and training to fully exploit the latest military hardware. By executing these measures, the Canadian Army will have a much greater chance of being able to effectively assist NATO in major conventional conflicts with a near-peer adversary as prescribed and strong security engaged. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I thank you very much. I will open up to any large questions that you guys may have. And again, thank you all very much for your time. What is that?
You originally you're talking about aerospace and a lot of travel back and forth.
Mhm.
How, because I imagine it's enemy kind of territory. How do they know who's coming through, who's allowed in? How are you, all the different countries, the Brits, France, Canada, allowed in there? It's the country itself that's allowing you in there and they know how to identify different aircraft that come through?
Yeah, so it's, if I can break it up, it's into two streams. So there's commercial airline and airspace between air in the air, and then there's tactical airlift, or there's, so what had to happen was there was an agreement with the United States Central Command and the government of Iraq to say any planes that we call on this channel, being the tactical airlift channel, as long as we do it in this kind of time and in this such a way, we have access to that under a binding agreement. So that's how you kind of get around the time and space of having to, punch in the same way that you would at an airport or whatnot. And even then, there are nuances and agreements when it comes to that. Like the Americans could come and go as they please. I still had to come in with my passport and get it punched. Now, was it like 2 seconds? I could go ahead of the line, and yeah, of course. There was still a system of checks and balances. So in short, it's been worked out with the US government under the banner within NATO too, to allow us to move in between those two countries, as long as we do it, again, from a tactical perspective. Sir?
Like you just mentioned, in Latvia, Canada has about 2,000 people. They've doubled the number in the last couple of years. The regular army is under strength, and right now, so it's based on an infantry battalion. There are about 150 reservists that are being attached to the regular army in Latvia, because the regular army is not big enough anymore. They've had serious recruiting and retention problems over the last decade because of what's gone on in Canada and the world. So right now there are about 15 local members from the reserve, Essex Scottish, that are now in Latvia, and another 15 will go next year. So the regular army is really having a hard time filling its commitments. That's why the reserves are augmenting the regular force all over the world.
Yes.
So the military has many years of improvement ahead.
Those numbers actually have gotten higher in the last 3 years. The Trudeau government prior to this one doubled the commitment from 1,200 contingent to 24 contingent, and now we've added a Canadian-based hospital, just Canadians, about 400, which is tough because when you're thinking about medical professionals and medical specialists in the Canadian Armed Forces, we probably en masse have about 1,200. So we're talking about almost half our capability within the medics and medic power. We are allotted now for that hospital as well in that.
How does the age demographic in the Canadian military compare to others within NATO? So are we a younger group than others, or an older group, or and even at different levels, like at the very top, is a brigadier general in one of the other armies older or younger than ours?
So as a totality, I would say we are older on average. I'd say a little bit, not much when I'm comparing it to the United States. My comparisons right now are to the United States Army. They are younger at the higher levels because they have more of them. They can have more of them, even though I would say this is an officer saying the officer corps, we're a little top heavy. To put it in perspective, we have a fighting force, not even of 80,000. If we had everyone in support, maybe 110,000 in the Canadian Forces and reserves and sub-reds and the Rangers and everyone. We have about 132 general officers and flag officers. To put it in perspective, so we have 130, we'll say, for about a fighting force or a totality force of 100,000. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, has roughly about a fighting force of 250,000. They have 39 generals and flag officers. So they have about a third or double the fighting force. Now, why is this? Legacy-wise in Canada, it's because if we ever were called upon by America and NATO's to fulfill our certain commitments that we have with NORAD and with the Americans and the Brits, that we could fulfill more of a battalion, more foot soldiers, and more army. Now, the day that another Afghanistan happens, and God forbid, but if it did, we would probably have, I would say, easily 20,000 soldiers tomorrow would sign up, who are former military, former Afghanistan vets, who will step to the cause, and I believe that probably will. that's still, from what Lieutenant Colonel Weir was mentioning, is still pales into comparison to what we actually need for retention to hold up the calf the way we used to in previous conflicts like Korea and like even Bosnia and the two great wars as well. So I'd say on average, we're a little older. I'd say 2 to 5 years older at most ranks, except for the senior ranks. They have a lot more youth because I've met 1-star brigadiers who were, I'm 40 years old, and they were within a couple of years of my age. So
Put that in perspective a little bit. The retirement age for the military used to be 55. Now it's 60.
now 65, you can put in for 5-year waiver, and they will give you up to 65 if you'd like.
Good say on this 60 years old. Trying to help the retention.
The last thing I have here, and I'm going to let you guys see. So the coolest thing, this is like me geeking out now for my tour. I got to work with all 5 branches of the U.S. Army. So that's Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Space Force.
Oh.
And Space Force is only 5 years old since 2019, or now 6 years old, to say. So I worked with one of the only Space Force officer on the entire mission of like 2,000 people. And here's the patch. It looks, for no one, it looks fake. Doesn't this look fake, sir? It's a real patch. So this is from, I had to write all this down. It's from 3rd Test Evaluation Squadron in Colorado Springs, Space Force Base, and has a bunch of other things on here that really describe what it is. But it's a really cool piece, and I'd like you all to see it. So again, thank you all for having me. I would do this again, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Lozano.
Yeah.
You've enlightened us. We really appreciate your service and your dedication to the Canadian forces. And I feel much safer and prouder to be a Canadian with people like yourself are out there.
Thank you, sir.
As a token of our appreciation, we give naturally sourced local honey to our guests.
Terrific.
So have a sweet day.
The only food that doesn't expire. That's right. Thank you, guys.